Okay, you good? Everybody ready? Okay. Thank you for coming. We're here to announce that on May 18th, around 11:30 at night, Lakijah Williams was shot and killed downtown near Studio Park in Grand Rapids here. Over this past weekend, the Grand Rapids Police have arrested Josiah Tyree Pittman, and my office has filed charges against Mr. Pittman for that homicide that occurred back in May. We have charged him with 1 count of second-degree murder. That's a felony. Maximum penalty is life in prison. We've also charged with 1 count of using a firearm in the commission of a felony. That is a maximum penalty of 2 years consecutive to whatever sentence he can receive on the homicide charge. This was a horrible event. This is something that obviously got a lot of media attention given the happened downtown. It was horrible. This was not a random act of violence. This was, we can't say a whole lot about the facts, given that we just filed charges at this point in time, but we can say it's just not a random act of violence. There was a target. Unfortunately, Miss Williams was not the target. She was just downtown minding her own business and got hit in a tragic set of circumstances here, and we feel horrible for her family and what they've gone through after this. We do not have any information on the arraignment. I believe it will maybe take place today, perhaps even tomorrow, but we do not have an official thing to announce on the arraignment. I'd like to compliment the chief and the Grand Rapids Police Department in terms of their investigation. I know they put a lot of man hours into this and did a lot, but I think this is also an example of the collaboration we do in these types of investigations with the Grand Rapids Police Department and, quite frankly, any department here in Kent County. When there's a serious event, when there's a violent event, my office assigns a prosecutor to work with law enforcement, APA Blair Lockman, to work with Grand Rapids Police in assisting on the investigation. We did use the investigative subpoena process, which is gives us the opportunity to bring witnesses down to interview them in a court proceeding, kind of court setting, to try and get a statement. And we did that here. But it's an example of what we do to try and bring people to justice and to solve crimes like this, because we know the impact it has in this community. So that's about all I have to say. I'll turn it over to the chief for any statements he'd like to make.
Thanks. And, first and foremost, I want to thank the Lakijah's family. 15-year-old girl who was literally just riding her scooter in downtown Grand Rapids is gunned down, and the family was devastated. So many other people were devastated too. Absolutely heartbreaking, absolutely tragic, absolutely avoidable. And I want to thank the community who really came together to recognize that we are not going to be the city that tolerates one of our children getting murdered and not following through. I certainly want to thank the detectives who, it's been months, and they have not rested, and they have not forgotten. And we are very happy that we were able to bring some level of closure to Lakijah's family. And finally, I want to thank APA Lockman and certainly Prosecutor Becker, who for the past few years, we've seen a decrease in violent crimes against our children here in the city of Grand Rapids. And he's a big part of why that's happened. It's difficult to talk about a decrease in crime when there's a name for every murder victim. In this case, that name is Lakijah, and they worked extremely hard to work with us so that we could bring some level of justice and comfort to Lakijah's family. So a lot of more work to be done in our community to prevent crimes like this. I'd much rather not be talking about this murder that we solved of a child in our community. I'd like to be talking about how we're preventing crime, and we're headed in the right direction. I'm glad we're able to give some closure today, and thank you guys all for being here to talk about it with us.
How difficult of a case was this to solve? Can you talk a little bit about that? I mean, it's been months.
Yeah, I'll say on a high level, every murder, even fairly, for lack of a better term, straightforward murder, say a domestic situation where it's fairly clear, every murder is extremely time-consuming to investigate. And when that incident happens outside, in public, it gets more complicated. When you throw in the fact that this murder happened in downtown Grand Rapids with numerous people around, I responded to the scene that night, and even late into the night, 2, 3 in the morning, there were dozens of people going by on scooters, on foot, on cars. So just the volume of people to interview is extensive. The volume of businesses to visit, the volumes of possibilities for where there could be surveillance video or other evidence. So this was an extremely heavy lift logistically. Again, 15-year-old child, I mean, we don't forget any murder victim, but when you're talking about a daughter of Grand Rapids, a 15-year-old child, my detectives, there's 40 of them on the other side of that wall, and they were not going to rest. We will not forget, and we will hold people accountable when this happens.
Do you have an age for Mr. Pittman?
Oh, 2005, October 2005 was his birthday. I don't have the exact date, but so he's just about to turn, what, 20?
Can you talk about the
19?
investigative subpoena process and why a subpoena process was necessary in a case like this one and what that entails?
I mean, it kind of goes to the prior question. Every case is a little bit different in terms of what you got to do for an investigation. Some we can solve the next day. Obviously, this took a little bit longer, but an investigative subpoena is, you give a subpoena just like they're coming to court, except it's something where it's not out for public. We bring them into usually a courtroom. We put them under oath. This case, we didn't have to do that, but if they lie under oath, we can charge them with perjury and then try and flip them after they lie under oath, because all of a sudden they've got charges hanging over their head. We usually do that in cases where witnesses are not as cooperative. We didn't utilize them as much. It wasn't like every witness, but we did utilize it in this process. And fortunately, the witness came in and was cooperative and didn't have any issues. But it's just a way to do everything we can. When all of a sudden people are facing charges of their own when they're trying to cover up or lie about what they saw or didn't see. It's just a tool that we use, and it has proven effective on a number of different cases here in the county.
And we can get this afterwards if necessary, but can we get the spelling of Mr. Pittman's name?
Sure, we can get that to you.
If you were looking for witnesses, some young witnesses that may have seen this, at one point asking their parents to bring them forward, were you able to find them and meet with them, and were they helpful?
Well, I'll say on a high level, we had a lot of cooperation from the community. Obviously, we have a very, very sympathetic victim here, a 15-year-old who was doing absolutely nothing that should have put her in the position of being a high-risk individual. I mean, riding a scooter with friends is not usually something that you would be concerned about as a parent. And so I'll just say at a high level, we had a lot of cooperation with the community. I am happy that we're able to reach this point as we did.
Chris, can you get into why second degree? You said second degree, right?
Yeah, a second-degree murder, yeah. First degree is, there's got to be some level of premeditation, deliberation. At this point in time, obviously those can change on the road, but at this point in time, there's no ability to show exactly that level that it was somehow, thought out beforehand, kind of planned. That's the level almost where you got to reach. But at this point in time, it was definitely the second-degree murder is an intent to kill, intent to do great bodily harm, or do some act where the natural tendency is to cause death or great bodily harm, and it caused the death of a person, and it's not excused or justified. So clearly, we feel we have enough evidence to prove those three elements beyond reasonable doubt. We just didn't have the premeditation and deliberation at this point in time to be able to show first degree.
Chief, you call this a cowardly act when it happened because Lakeisha was not an intended target. Can you talk about, do you know who the intended target was in this situation? And do you have any information on that?
I don't, I know as a police department, we're not ready to share that information. If you
we're
want to
gonna-
opine on that.
Same thing, we have an idea who it was, we're not gonna get into that at this point in time. It was somebody else, and, there may be something developing out of that. So at this point in time, we're not prepared to delve into what that was, but clearly, she was not the target. Somebody else was, and unfortunately, she was caught in the crossfire.
Was she with the target? Or was she with the,
No, she wasn't with the target, it was in the area, not with, but it wasn't like hanging out with him or friends with him or anything along those lines.
I think part of why, you mentioned cowardly, I can't paint the picture enough. Even a half hour later, when I got on scene, even late into the night, 2, 3 in the morning, there's a lot of people downtown. There are a lot of individuals on bikes, on scooters, on foot. This is a very thriving, vibrant downtown. So the idea that you're going to take a handgun and shoot an individual, 10, 15, 20, however far away, extremely cowardly act. Number one, for the act, but number two, you have no idea where those rounds are going to go. And they travel a long way, and they're still deadly when they travel many blocks.
Oftentimes when there's violence like this, law enforcement says they have a hard time getting witnesses, getting people to come forward and to be able to actually solve the crime. how important was it to have those eyewitnesses and those people that came forward with the subpoena?
It's pretty vital to have those witnesses. I mean, there's a lot of evidence where it comes to homicide with a gun, forensic evidence, et cetera. But when you're talking about a 15-year-old child that's murdered, one of the things I said earlier is we as a city, we throw away the code of silence. There is no tolerance of any sort of gang culture. I mean, we never want to be the city that tolerates one of our children getting murdered and adults, even other friends of that individual, not coming forward. There is absolutely no way to morally defend silence when it comes to a child being murdered. So vital and very happy that the community came together for this one.
Mr. Becker, you called this not a random act of violence. Why do you believe it wasn't?
Because it wasn't just somebody just shooting to shoot, like, randomly shooting into a group. There was somebody they were after. They wanted to shoot that person. Unfortunately, somebody else got caught up in it. And there's a beef, if you will, between them. There's a reason he wanted to. So it wasn't just somebody, deciding to, fire off some rounds because they wanted to just scare people or cause some sort of thing. They were going after an individual. They didn't get that individual, got somebody else. So it wasn't random in that sense.
Chief, this homicide was about 2 weeks before the Amelie Penn homicide.
That's right.
Your detectives, GRPD, can you talk about the efforts you guys are doing to help solve another murder of a teen just 2 weeks later?
That's right. And another case where we had a 15-year-old child murdered in public with many witnesses. He was playing football. Again, not conducting himself in any way that you would be worried that here's a 15-year-old child that's going to be placed in harm's way. He was just out playing with his friends, and he was shot. And this was broad daylight. So many witnesses. There's a lot of housing around there, a large apartment building, a lot of people for our detectives to talk to, and we're very methodical. We're methodical with the forensic evidence. So, I'm confident that we're headed in the right direction on that case, and we certainly, just with Lacaja, we have a lot of detectives who are not going to rest, and we are definitely not going to forget about Millie.
Was this a beef between two people or two groups of people?
Just it was a beef. It was. We're not gonna get too many details. We'll just leave it at that. There was reasons, but just start getting into the beefs and who was and what was. We'll just leave it at that.
How far away was the gunfire? Can you talk about that? I mean, you talked about it was.
Yeah, I would say a significant distance. I don't have the measurements. I'm sure our forensic team has that because there was a lot of evidence on scene, but I'm sure it'll all be shared at trial. But certainly, I stick by my point that it was a cowardly way to kill someone.
Okay.
All right. But
Thank
thank
you.
you guys so
Appreciate it.
much for
Thank
being
you.
here.
Thank you.
I'll follow up with a media release that includes the correct spelling of the name